What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Carbonite Bounty BS with me and the nerds here, guys. How y'all doing this week?
Oh,
Good,
baby.
awesome, man.
Oh,
Home stretch, guys. Home stretch, man. It's wild.
Home stretch.
Started, and it looks like we're finally getting to the end, the conclusion of Rebels. So, before we even dive into our first thoughts of this beginning of season four, DP, why don't you let everybody know where to find us at?
Nerdcyclopedia.com, people. Make sure that you are going to our site and hitting up all our different platforms that we are on social media at Nerdcyclopedia, on Twitter, Facebook, and also on Instagram. Make sure that if you are watching us right now on YouTube, that you are hitting that notification button, subscribing, and so anytime that we're on, you know that we're on. If you are listening to us in the car, in the morning, in the evening, on your way to work, on your way from work, that you're subscribing to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast, we are there. Hit our Facebook group too if you're on social media. Carbonite Bounty BS, Star Wars group. We are on there with your favorite memes and favorite Star Wars topics. It's some good stuff on there. And then if you are wanting to get in touch with us directly, nerds at nerdcyclopedia.com. Leave us some feedback. We love to hear from you.
Appreciate it. And like I said, guys, we're at the home stretch here, of part one of our season four Rebels finale here. So, we'll just kick it off, and we'll start in the opposite corner here. So, Hitch, what are your first thoughts off the bat?
always moving diagonal. I love that about you. All right. So this is one of those sets of episodes that has everything I like in it. Everything's all tied up into a nice bow. We go back to Lothal. We get some really interesting Jedi stuff going on. So we see Ezra progress, which I really like how they're telling that story of Ezra, and we get to see Mandalore, and we get to see a lot of Mandalore, and we understand how the political intrigue works. Sabine has some really deep character moments here in season 4, where we find out exactly what it was that she was doing for the Empire, that she's so guilty about, and really, frankly, she should feel pretty guilty about this. Turning her own people's Beskar against them. But if Mandalorian taught us anything, it's that the Mandalorians are not going to be in for a lot of fun here at the end of Rebels, at the hand of the Empire. So it was great to see. It's great to see the rebellion sort of come together and coalesce here, into something that we really recognize. And look, this had heists, multiple train heists. It had Wedge Antilles in it. Mm-hmm. Literally, if I when we were talking last year, if I'd said this, I basically was describing this set of episodes when I said, well, this is what I want from Star Wars TV. So I had a really great time watching them. It was an awesome set.
Yeah. What about you, Governor?
Yeah, I second that. I mean, watching this first set of episodes, I mean, this is the birth of the rebellion. I mean, we're seeing it build, and we're seeing how the structure coalesced into what we saw in Rogue One, into A New Hope. So we're getting all the nice little call outs. They mentioned Director Krennic a couple times. They mentioned things that are starting to tie everything together. I really like seeing Callus, right?
Yeah.
He looked, I mean, he's like Dash Rendar. He's this sort of like mercenary pilot, but he has all this background and he knows about the Empire. So put that guy in the driver's seat. Let him do something. It was really, and he let his hair grow out. He looks like Han, a little bit like Han, kind of that brash, good-looking mercenary character. A lot of good stuff in this set. I feel like you said, Steel City Hitch. Sabine, we see a lot of that dark past to her, but I don't really understand. I don't really know why. Like, why did she decide to help the Empire build this weapon? Like, what was what fell off in her life? Was it the fracture between her and her mother? I mean, was there this huge rift that she just was like lost? So she turned to the Empire to give her some guidance. I'd like to see that story. I'd like to see where that happened. But I love the Lothal cat and wolf vibe. Like, that's a whole new thing. They're building that a little bit, kind of left off it trailed off a little bit at the end. So I'm hoping the second set brings it back. But I liked it. I mean, this is the meat. This is the meat that we were looking for to get us into A New Hope. And that's from a vintage guy. That's from the old school Star Wars perspective.
What about you, DP?
Yeah, the follow up with what the governor was saying there. I stopped this episode 7, so it sort of left me at like wow, at a wow point. It was a great way for me to just leave that as like a cliffhanger. Yeah, I love this set of episodes. It's sort of like rolling downhill now. You're going down here to like the finish line. It's coming, this is last season for what we know of. And you sort of feel things, you feel momentum moving. You feel things are moving, a lot more action, a lot more, activity going on and everything. And as you said, if you guys are saying that this is the birth of rebellion, I'm loving everything that I'm seeing. So far, everything on Mandalore was great. Sabine, just seeing her, rich character, just develop, even more and even richer, is even better. Lothal, just having that experience of Ezra going back to his home sort of like ties everything back to what we encountered in the beginning with him, just meeting him, and now we're sort of like ending this series with him on like, I don't know how long they're going to spend on Lothal, but it's sort of like tying things back from what we experienced like with him in the first season, just meeting him. And while I think if we go a couple episodes back or a few episodes, and I think I was like, okay, I'm not really feeling this guy Ezra, or he's a little bit annoying and everything. Ezra is one of my favorite characters now. I could see this guy and as a grown, maybe this may be sacrilegious to you guys, but maybe like a Luke replacement or whatever for like future Star Wars. I'm liking his development overall, throughout like the series and stuff. Kim was saying the loaf cats, the loaf wolves. Oh man, that was probably one of the most awesome things I've seen in this series so far. That's just like some stone cold different type, mystic type stuff that you don't usually see in like, Star Wars, or at least, from what I'm seeing like so far, watching Rebels and Clones. So this is just different, and I can't wait to watch the rest of them.
Yeah, and I echo with all you guys said as well. I mean, it's been a great start. I mean, definitely an interesting set. The parallels. We talk about. This draw to Lothal. This is where the journey began. This is maybe where the journey ends. But the parallels to Luke and the need to get back to Tatooine. Anakin, the need to get back to Tatooine. Rey, the need to get back to Jakku. It's always been this centralized theme of that need to get back to somewhere as home. Kind of like us. We always want to get back to home. So that driving force, I think, that they kept in the story, this last season's been great, and how they tied Lothal back in, because we've been, in so many nostalgic places, we've seen so many things. It's nice to kind of draw that back in and still tie into those home roots even for Ezra. So I really like that, and also, we see the birth, of the TIE Destroyer, which is really cool. So I think that was really, really cool how we seen, the test run, and we see Thrawn, and how he kind of instructs him to let him go. We want to see how the ship operates. They kind of watch it, kind of just like we saw in Rogue One when they were testing the super weapon. So it's both sides. We see the birth of rebellion. We also see the advancements, and with it be Sabine making their first kind of Rey, so to speak, as far as a weapon. We see their advancements in ships, and in flight, and weaponry as well. So definitely you see the growth of both sides, the Empire and the Rebellion, and it's really tying in a lot of the stories as we move forward, to these next set of movies that we'll be discussing in the future. So really excited for it. But yeah, as we said, there was, we'll get into it a little later in the show, but we all did kind of catch a big plot hole that I'd like to get maybe the other guys' thoughts. I know a couple of us talked about it off cam before we got on, so a couple interesting things what we can pick up on for sure.
How about Thrawn? So this guy, so strategic and important to the Empire, pretty much running the show right now, as far as I can tell. Like everything we've seen, he is running the show.
Mhm.
And where does he lose? Where does he lose it? Like, where does he fall out of the whole story? You know, why is he not in Empire Strikes Back? Why is he not mentioned in that? You know,
Mhm.
where is he? Because, I mean, the
Come
way he
on.
stood down that TIE destroyer. I mean, he just stood there. And did anything hit him? No.
Oh, of course not.
But his ship got dusted.
Yeah.
And he just stood his ground. I mean, so that's a question I have. Like, he's obviously there in the timeline. He's current. He's there during the Battle of Yavin. He's there during the occupation of Hoth. He's there during the destruction of the second Death Star. So why does the Empire fail so miserably with a leader as powerful as Thrawn and Director Krennic, for that matter? I mean, that guy was pretty ballsy. I mean, he was out there and he was putting himself in pretty dangerous situations as a leader. So where does the Empire like fail so miserably and fall apart when they have these strong military opponents?
For all our listeners out there, there is a big Thrawn cliffhanger. So your answers will be answered.
Are coming? Okay.
Oh, it's coming. It's coming.
Well, knowing all about how Ahsoka's still looking for Thrawn in the future makes you really appreciate the real loving time that they're spending on Thrawn here. And one of the things I really, really like about Thrawn is how they just portray him as wanting to know what's going on. He wants to figure things out, and he figures out it's Ezra flying the TIE destroyer, right? He figures that out on his own. He's like, oh nope, if it was a Syndulla, they'd all be dead. He says that, which is really baller. And I like how he figures out that it's Sabine there too. So Thrawn has there's a lot of depth to Thrawn. And you're right. What causes him to lose so much favor with the Emperor that he loves so much?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Thrawn's a pretty like competent guy. Like, if they're like, the competence is a level 10. You know what I mean? So how you beat that guy and then beat him so bad that the Emperor, sort of like puts him in a box, because who knows what's up with him? Like you said, I mean, shouldn't I mean, okay, I understand not putting him in charge of the first Death Star, right? But when you have a whole B team, he's the second. He's not your second string person. I almost want to go back and insert Thrawn as the person that Vader comes and threatens a little bit, just because I think it would be crazy awesome to see that happen. But Thrawn wouldn't buckle like that guy does, right?
Well, anyway. George has inserted things before, so
So there could have been a conflict between. I mean, maybe there was such tension between him and Vader that the Emperor was like, "No, we can't have this. This would just destroy everything." Maybe that's what happened.
Your answers will be answered very soon. maybe even tonight. If you stay up,
will be answered.
If you stay up, as I know Ken will, and binge these, your answers will be tonight. You will get your answers.
Well, Book of Boba too. I mean,
it's a busy night in Star Wars land. We're recording this the night. If we want to stay up till 3 a.m, we can watch Boba Fett, Book of Boba Fett episode 3, which just in case anyone has ever cared about what night we're recording anything. No one ever has, and that's okay. That's okay. But I love Thrawn. Thrawn's so threatening, man. He looks intimidating, and whenever Thrawn shows up, the real plot is here, right? It's just like Vader.
Right.
So too early in the season. That here at the end of this set is when Thrawn shows up. Thrawn shows up in episode 1 or 2, and you're like, we'll come back later when the plot's thickened a little bit.
Now what's up with these villains and stuff? It's just the tropiness of it. It's just Thrawn, every time he's on screen, I don't think I've ever seen his hands. I don't think it when he shot the gun and everything. That's probably like one of the only times you've seen his hands. But because other than that, they're always behind his back when he's walking. Like he's the leader. He's the thinking leader. So thinking leaders, the trope is that they walk with their hands behind their back. As they survey the situation and tell people what to do. So it's really hilarious to me how that they just imbue him with the that trope there. We see Saw Gerrera. You know, we get Forrest
Ooh,
Whitaker.
yes.
You know,
Yes.
so that was
yes.
interesting. You know, to see. I like the way that they stick with the way he looks, and to the degree of the eye thing that Forrest Whitaker has, they still have that for the actual character. That was like, wow. Okay.
And tell you what, he's a wrecking ball. And I understand now why when we really first get introduced to him, why nobody likes him. Because he just takes things too far.
Way too far.
His mind is in the right place. Like, his end, like what he wants, the result is right. The way he gets it, bad.
So what's the difference between him and the Rebel Alliance is Saw doesn't care about being able to form a legitimate governance at the end of this process. You know what I mean? Like Mon Mothma is like, okay, so at the end of this, somebody's going to have to run the Republic. And that means the rebels have to have some people that are respectable enough that could, you know, have some sort of popular legitimacy. But if you are, if you're hijacking freighters, you know, and blowing up and torturing pilots that have already come to you with information, if you're doing that sort of stuff, you're not going to be, you know, you're not going to be the legitimate governor of the Outer Rim. It's just not going to happen. I mean, you wouldn't be qualified. So
you're just there blowing stuff up for the good guys. I mean, what's the difference between you and being in the Empire for the most part? So.
Well, the difference is that the Empire is factually evil. We know that. so is Saw Gerrera wrong that the Empire must be defeated before anything else can happen? No. And it is useful to have allies like him that can do the things that you wouldn't want to do. It's a common thing throughout history, you know, auxiliary troops or whatever. You know, you don't have to get your hands dirty with things. So, you know, he's an integral part of the Rebel Alliance. And I just love how ruthless. He's just ruthless. Man. Ooh.
He's a huge hammer at, you know, and the couple of missions that he completed were just, I mean, he got the job done, but it was a mess. I mean, he just destroyed everything and made people uncomfortable and scared. And so there's that. That was a great thing. And then, like, mentioned Thrawn one more time. So Thrawn's great. He's strategic. He understands things. He feels. He knows. How about that assassin he hired?
Yeah.
That guy was terrible.
Rook, yeah.
Yeah, he was terrible.
Team, is that a Nokri?
Yeah.
I thought that was.
That there's this race of super awesome bodyguards that follows like Vader and Leia around in the EU, and it seemed pretty similar to how they're portrayed. So I'm hopeful that we'll get a confirmation that's the race of alien.
But he did a sloppy job. He really wasn't. He
Jedi.
He wasn't really effective as much as I thought he was going to be.
So a Nogri, so a Nogri should be a mismatch. So any two Jedi against anything should be a mismatch. First of all,
right.
So you know they're running against a strike force with two Jedi and an assault, and you know you have what, the Kurgan backing you up. So I mean I'm not gonna, you know, I'm gonna give him a little bit of a pass there, but I love seeing when they bring this EU stuff on the screen, man. It's so cool, and you can see how, you know, the idea that the EU is totally dead is maybe a little bit premature to say that, because there are some of these features that are coming forward with, you know, with the plot.
Well, I guess since it's no longer part of canon, I guess the best thing you could do with like EU stuff is bring some of those elements up and just rejigger them, you know, put them into different place, and you know, insert them into like, you know, different, since you don't have since you don't have to make them canon, since you don't have to be beholden to that, you know, part of canon and everything, you could just bring any element up, you know, and use it. You know, at least it's there for you to use. At least the good thing about the EU stuff is there for you to use for future or whatever that you needed to serve whatever story that you're trying to tell, and still I guess give some sort of fan service.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. I just felt that like Thrawn is, as you know, powerful as he is, and all, you know, the number of resources he has, why didn't he pick a better, you know, a better tool to go to go get these rebel scum. You know, I mean, he would have been better off sending 30 platoons of stormtroopers that couldn't hit the side of a barn than this.
I don't think he served the plot as well in that episode, because I think that was the episode where they ended up finding that portal and everything, right? I mean, that was the last episode, no, episode 7 and everything. So I think they more or less wanted to focus towards that than get any deeper with what, you know, Rook or whatever, you know, of him trying to find, you know, the rebels and stuff. You know, that was like a fan servicey thing.
Yeah. Whose job was this? It was Callus's, right? So there's a new guy doing that job. Yeah, and it's Nahu, and it's pretty cool. And were they effective? No, but you know, in if we're saying, so we're gonna say, and I just want to be clear here. So the plot hole we want to talk about in that episode is literally was this agent badass enough, and not the wolf teleport. So we don't want to talk about that as a plot hole, but we want to talk about whether this guy. I don't know. For my thinking is that whole episode was weird. And it was like
it's just like you're saying, it takes you 2 different places, because with the wolf and the force beings, and we kind of got that earlier in Rebels when they went to the other planets and whatnot. So what we're seeing is like the Wills, and this is more of where the Wills took Star Wars and how they viewed the Force. There were Force beings, like when they went on these other planets. There were other really Druids of the Force and other beings that were super Force sensitive, and they can change things, you know, just like we consider the living Force now. So kind of takes some EU stuff, some different. I mean, I guess some people would call it canon material, but it kind of muddies the water when you see, you know, the 3 different trilogies and where they thought the Force was, and when you talk about midichlorians or the living Force, or, you know, in the final sequel trilogy, I mean, you know, Force dyads and however they viewed the Force, it was a little different. So, you know, how it just kind of pulls it. I feel like the way they're tying this together with more of the, you know, even when you get to the final sequel trilogy, I believe in episode 8, which is the one I despise of, you saw a little bit of the you know, I'll say that this does tie in episode 8 when you saw the you know, the temple that Luke was, and how it ties in, you know, more mythology of the Jedi and things like that. So it does tell a story. The Wolf, I really enjoy it. I wish they kind of went a little deeper into that in the movies. Maybe stuck with, you know, the whole wills and because they talk about the Journal of the Wills. That's kind of a big part that was lost in the final sequel trilogy. So I like how they kind of keep the wills introduced into Star Wars, which ultimately are the beings which, you know, created the Force as we know it. So really, really good, interesting point. I like how you brought that up, DP.
And that's that itself is not an unusual trope from EU, by the way.
Right.
Weird Force being that's connected to the Force that leads to some whale. I don't know, but we had whales here too. They do a lot of stuff like that. It's a normal thing for Star Wars.
Right.
Yeah, so it reminded me too. I don't know how much you guys watch Lost and everything, but when they went into the caves and finally found out why they was on that island, and you know, they was finding out like different parts of the history of the island and everything. This sort of like reminded me of that. You know, you got the and it's sort of like Game of Thrones too, where we found like you know, what was it, one of the episodes Hitch that I can't remember her name now, blonde dragon lady or whatever.
Oh, Daenerys.
Yeah, Daenerys. Daenerys and John was finding those different you know, figures and stuff on the walls and stuff, and they was finding like the histories and everything. So yeah, I mean, I was loving that. So I mean, it's a couple things too. We got to see Kanan and Hera, you know, hook up. I mean, if you want to call it that. I don't know how much this being an
They
animated.
were always getting interrupted though.
Yeah, they were always getting interrupted, but they finally got there. You know, I mean, I kind of like the way that they sort of teased that, like, you know, throughout, like, you know, the series and everything. So it's just a matter of time before they actually went there. But it's sort of funny seeing that in animation form. Because you don't really see that in animation with romantic interest and stuff going that deep with actual physical, kissing like that, and I'm not going to keep saying this like a children's show because clearly it deals with like, adult themes and stuff, sort of more complicated than usual, kids type stuff. So it was cool to see that. When hold on here. You got Ezra and Sabine going to that pub, and they were playing that the Empire music.
Oh yeah. The Imperial March was hilarious in the beginning. Yeah, I like that.
Oh, that was just hilarious. The propaganda.
It was a remix.
With no bass or anything like that, EQ'd high enough to where it sounded like it was propaganda music. I'm like, that's really deep. That was one of my favorite one of my favorite scenes in it.
Little Easter egg there for us.
Yeah. Right on the TV. So I'm sitting up here like, who made this theme for them? And it's actually canon within the universe that it exists. Yeah. Oh man. They got John Williams sitting somewhere making, in a canteen or somewhere else.
He's just hooked into the Matrix.
He just hooked into the Matrix.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, that was I like that. Like I said, I liked everything about the Low Cats. Seeing that, the big large wolf, I was like, what the heck is this? Let's get more of this going on here. The stormtroopers, they're idiots. Why would they leave the ship unguarded to chase those Low Cats? That's just that's unacceptable.
Pride. Pride.
Cat bit me. Things. Hey, get back here, cat.
Yeah.
No, coyote. That coyote bit me. Let's get it.
You know what I
shoot
noticed?
It? No. Don't shoot it with the guns we're carrying. Run after the thing for a half a mile.
You know what I noticed with the stormtroopers? The painting, the armor, the reflection of light. I mean, they look like they're metal. I mean, some of the scenes, like we talk about it, we haven't really mentioned it lately. Just the sophistication that these shows are done in are super detailed. And I'm just noticing now, like the stormtrooper armor, explosions. Best special effect in the whole thing was when they hyperspaced through the Imperial freighter.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That was badass.
Come on.
All the everything's burned up, just
right through the hangar. I mean, I want to see that. I want to see that injected into what had a big escape in it that the end of A New Hope. There was a
New Hope had it. Jedi had escape like that.
Yeah,
Empire had an escape like that through the asteroid field.
It was all right there, but I don't think J.J. Abrams or anybody looked at any of the Clone Wars or Rebel stuff to try to pick up anything.
Nothing.
Nothing. Let's just try stuff on our own and see if that works. No, you had stuff already there. Ideas and stuff that pretty cool stuff. I'm seeing, like, I'm watching these 7 episodes. And I'm seeing it as a movie, period. This could have been, on screen with live action actors, and I would have been way more invested than what I was in maybe that, the sequel trilogy and everything. It's just that good.
Like, I hear scores dropping is what I hear. I hear ratings dropping.
And what is it? Is it like the more you know about what the potential of Star Wars is?
That's what I'm saying. The more, and you know what's crazy about us? There's me and there's Hitch on this. Now I see the darkness coming in DP, and I love it. I see it in his eyes, and I love it.
Give me more low wolves and everything. I'm like, what? Where? What? That's some straight fantasy mysticism right there. And then they're all of a sudden, and Sabine's like, we're on the other side of the hemisphere. What?
And then the wolf is just like, shh.
The breath just puts her out, man. He hits her with a hot breath, and that's it.
He just goes, Dune. Like, oh, this guy loves Dune.
Yeah. By the way, yeah. we get Kanan's real name, which is weird for a Jedi because most Jedi don't adopt new names, but we know we get Kanan's real name. That was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the wolf knew it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wolves know things, man. Dogs know stuff. I don't know. I believe that they know things about it. So I'm okay with that.
Ezra was astute enough to know that they was wanting Kane. I mean, you were Kanan and everything. So I sort of like that switch and stuff. I mean, you know, he was running after him, but you know, they was wanting Kanan, you know. And it just makes me want to know a lot more about, you know, these wolf cats and everything, and you know, to see everything that develops in them. And as Kim was saying, if we could get some of this stuff in like the live action movie type stuff, you know, it'll be a great element to see, you know, in you know, future Star Wars stuff.
Yeah, definitely agree.
Talking about effects, I want to call out specifically a couple things. One, when they had that liquid metal effect in the end of the episode 2, where they blew up the weapon and like they had that effect for like that was really
on the AT-ATs. Yeah, I saw that. That looked
really gorgeous shot. And I know we only said 7 or whatever, but 8 it has all the smoke effect in it that just looks incredible. And you know, between this the Forrest Whitaker eyeball thing that we have going on, Young Wedge Antilles.
It's crazy that they had that detail like that and just stuck with it. You know, they could have just, you know, had a straight black guy, you know, and regular eyes and everything, and you know, it just had his voice there, but they kept the detail of what Forrest Whitaker really actually looks like there, you know, in the series and stuff. I mean, that's just nice.
It's synergy. It's the best kind of synergy. Corporate synergy.
Yeah.
So how about that weapon? Now, we mentioned it. So I'm thinking it somehow harnessed dark side lightning, because that would be the only thing I could think of that would turn Beskar against a Mandalorian and cook them inside their own armor. I mean, and just think about it, when the Emperor used it on Luke, that's kind of what was happening, right?
I mean, the way she kind of explained it, I almost thought more like a Tony Stark, like a arc reactor. The way she described it, like arc energy, basically like a reactor. They created the beam, but even the way they drew that, I mean, the animation for that, it looked better than the lightning we see in the movies. To be honest, I mean, it looked realistic. You know, it wasn't, you know, cartoony. It just, the special effects, when you see the special effects and they pull them off in this animated, it's a lot of it's stunning the way it looks.
All the flying, all the ships, everything in space looks really, really good, to the point where it's almost like, you know, when they make it's like obvious when they're making the choice to render these ships in like lo-fi, to present them as animated almost, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's interesting to see, like, this is an expression of like what a stylized version of Star Wars is, you know? And it's interesting to see that, like, that versus how they portray it in real life. And one example of that is how there's a Loth cat in Mandalorian season 1, episode 4, and the way that you can kind of see the way that's portrayed. So it's an interesting. It's an interesting. I found that on the internet. I didn't catch that. I remember that, guys. I'm not going to pretend like I'm not that good. In episode 4.
Episode 4, season what? Which season?
Season 1, episode 4, Sanctuary.
I think it's 15 or 16 minutes in.
Something like that.
Oh, we got
sorry, guys. Look, I feel like you want this specific information. I looked at it like 25 minutes ago. It's not like I'm going to forget it that fast. Come on, guys. Come on.
So I mean, we discussed this off camera, so we can we'll touch on it. You know, the big plot hole is the Darksaber and how it's handed over. I mean, how, you know, that's the thing. That's the thing that I think needs settled. I don't think it will get settled based on where we are, what we'll get, and what we see. But yeah, it was interesting how it was just kind of handed over, kind of passed down. I mean, I guess the thought process would be a forfeit, but Din tried to forfeit it. So yeah, the whole dark saber and the mythology of how you obtain the dark saber was it's a little cloudy there. So I don't know. What were your thoughts on that, Ken? Did you catch that at all, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more if you modernize it, bring it into this time and the conflicts that are going on. I think it's you, you have to earn it, and you don't necessarily have to kill someone to get it. But I think if you prove yourself to be a leader, prove yourself to be good, and have the people that you will rule over have their best interests in mind, then you deserve it. You've earned it. And I think that's why Sabine was going to pass it on to um, Bo-Katan, right? Because she earned it. She's the respect. She's going to carry it on and rule her people with strength and wisdom. And that's how I say it, because the mythology says you have to kill the person that has it.
Right.
Not very
And that's what
hard.
that's what Moff Gideon says. Remember, that's why
Yeah,
she won't accept it from Din. So that's
and
why I was like, this is a little
he's the Empire, right?
Yeah, of course he's going.
Of course
I mean,
he's gonna say you got to kill the person to get it. That's what he wants to keep going
yeah,
on.
they're going and everything.
Yeah,
It'll
maybe
be
they shouldn't listen to him.
Yeah, I don't think we should
yeah,
listen to him.
maybe.
He's a bad guy.
it'll be a great way to tie back into some elements of episode 8, where they were trying to lay down the thing about you don't have to hold on to the past and um um forge your own future and stuff. So you holding on to like the old ways and the old ancient ways of going about stuff, and the mythologies and the traditions of passing things on, or um you can actually forge new ways. So this is on Sabine. She's forging a different way. We just need them to explain that in universe instead of us doing head canon with it.
Right.
It's a really good way where they sort of like tie both of those. If we're going to keep everything from like the trilogy stuff, it'd be a great way to tie that theme from episode 8 to what she did here. In these
Yeah.
episodes.
There's a
We
lot of
got our
periods in history where that is basically the case.
right.
During crisis in the Roman Empire, or anytime there's a revolution, or anytime like you get conquered. This is essentially what would happen. Someone would kill the king and become the king, and that's how things were run. But as you may just from naming the places where this was going on, no, that's not a great way to organize a legitimate transfer of power, because cutting someone's head off is not a legitimate not a legitimate action of the people.
It's not a good way to win over the people that you will hope to rule.
Right. Well, rule versus lead, right? And legitimacy is such an interesting thing, and it being like the fact that it comes from the lightsaber, which is like the symbol of the Jedi, right? And it's a Mandalorian lightsaber. It's not the same exact thing, but the fact that symbol is the Jedi lending legitimacy to governance. It says this is the reason the Republic lasted for so long, was because there were Jedi stuff, right? Mm-hmm. That's why it went on. That's why it was legitimate, because the Jedi supported it. It's an interesting, like, microcosm of that symbol, distilled down into a cool looking thing with a reverse, like almost photo negative lightsaber. That design is excellent. I like design.
Yeah, it's very slick. It'd be my favorite weapon that we've seen. If I could have one, like real, I'd say, yeah, I'll take a dark saber.
Everyone would think you're a goth if you have one of those. Oh, geez, that guy's got a dark saber. Watch out.
Yeah. Paint my fingernails black and everything.
You'd have to. That's part of. It's all part of the culture.
Yep.
Dark saber culture.
How about we got our kind of first intimation of the Dark Troopers as well? That was kind of cool. We saw that, and we take it forward to the Mandalorian, and now we see why they've taken a humanoid version of an elite force like a Dark Trooper, and they've weaponized them to be robots because of, as we talk about, even Dark Troopers, I guess, can't shoot and have errors. It's shocking. And then you take it forward past the Mandalorian to that final sequel trilogy, and what we believe to it being is they're stealing Force sensitives and making them stormtroopers. So, interesting dichotomy, I guess, as we see and we talked about this when we started doing the podcast early on. I mean, the clone trooper to the humanoid to what would be a robot at some point in the future. So
Yeah.
it's very interesting how we tie in the life, I guess, of a stormtrooper, and I think we're still calling out for that kind of real stormtrooper story. I like how they alluded to it with Finn. I wish they kind of would have kept that a little more, like kept that going a little bit. Because it'd been nice to hear, like, the story of a stormtrooper. So maybe that's something they write about. Because we've had our Thrawn books, we've had our Dark Side, we've had our Sith books. I'd love to hear like a real story, not of like Clone Wars, but like a trooper, like a story. I think that'd be really cool to dive
I mean,
into.
they were basically being kidnapped from like their
Right.
families and stuff, right? That's some
Yeah.
deep, that's some deep stuff right there.
Well, they were recruited at first, and then they ran out of them because when you just have all your soldiers killed all the time, you run out. I mean, that's
which one would they do? They could do like 1127, the one that was one of the ones that was supposed to be guarding the Falcon on the first Death Star.
Mm-hmm.
Basically ended his career getting thwacked on the head by Han Solo.
Well, there's plenty of space for it. I mean, the Obi-Wan Kenobi series would give plenty of room for some defector stormtrooper to show up. The Andor series would be a good spot for something like that. So I would like to see that too. And I think that if you have some, because you have so much Star Wars TV, if you have a series that's specifically an anthology set, I think you can handle that. Actually thinking of anthology sets with Star Wars, Visions might be a good spot for something like this, where it's all about, the trooper trying to run away and being pursued or whatever. There's some cool, some cool stuff. They've actually made some real great headway in having extra places for them to express those sort of alternative stories. And again, because Rebels is scratching my itch for a Wraith Squadron series, because that's basically what they are. I mean, they even have Wedge. Like they have half the people. So I'm willing to see them do a little bit of avant-garde stuff. But it's interesting how much room you have for dessert when the main course is so big.
Right. And keep in mind, the Ghost is in episode 9 for those who don't remember. So really, really cool callback for DP if you haven't caught that.
Huh.
The rebel ship, the Ghost. Yeah, it's in episode 9 in the final scene.
Yeah, that I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, that was supposed to be like the big in-game type moment that didn't really land. If you weren't really like totally invested in it, if you were, and you're probably like, this is some rush type shit. I mean, it's rough type stuff here. To kind of pack all this, But I guess we'll get to that. But yeah, this was a tight set of tightly plotted episodes that still brought its characters to its own end game, if you want to say, put it like that. And I'm liking I kind of wish Alan Kanan would get his eyesight back, but the storyline is what it is. And
what did she say? She said, you could always see me.
Always see me,
So what does that mean?
They have this thing. They have this thing between the two.
They're connected.
Yeah, they're connected. Yeah, it's just that connection. So it doesn't matter if he doesn't physically see her. He can always see her.
You see, Ken, the love of a Jedi is very different from that of a square.
Is it?
When they think about you, they can see you. That's
they
the
can
crazy
really
thing
think about
you.
you.
They actually know what you're doing. You know what I mean? So and if you like them back, that's it. It's just a feedback loop. You just gotta watch it.
Look what it did to Anakin, right?
I mean, seriously, that's the whole plot of this entire thing.
Yeah, think about it. Yeah. Interesting.
That's hilarious. Right. Wow.
Right. But yeah, guys, as we come up on the conclusion of Rebels here, I mean, we have literally what's this 8? So 7 more episodes. Well, 8 to 15. So, and the 15 is a long one. So I mean, it's our finale. Star Wars Rebel finale show coming up. I mean, I know we talked about it.
it's sort of sad. I mean, because this is sort of like the end of the Filoni stuff, until we're doing like,
Right.
Boba and Mandalorian and stuff, right? But I've had a fun run watching the Filoni universe develop, and respecting the heck out of it. It's been a fun ride,
Yeah, I second that as well. I mean, it's crazy how he's done all this headway, and it took the Mandalorian, and it took what, 2 episodes for this guy that was always around to
Always.
really propel him to, like, superstardom, in the Star Wars stratosphere. So it's crazy that, like we talked about it, this stuff just sat around. I didn't watch it,
I mean,
until
he was a guy in the basement making chicken nuggets. Is that what they say in The Wire?
Yeah.
that they disrespected
How
so
come
much.
he's making the chicken nuggets? That's how it comes.
Yeah,
That's how come the king stays the king.
Right,
He was a
right,
mail boy.
right.
He started out as George's mail boy. He was getting the mail for the set, Now look at the guy.
Now look at him.
Now
Right.
look at it. Yep.
He's bringing it back.
It's so interesting that there's so many people we talk to, they're casual fans, and I mean people like my father-in-law and my dad, that are just not hooked into Star Wars, who are into the Mandalorian, who are into the Western feel, and these cartoons deepen that connection. They deepen that series specifically, and if you're not familiar with them and you watch them, you will catch connections to all these different episodes of this television series that's already out and the new one. Nothing more. I mean, I will say this: there's nothing more like satisfying as a long-term fan than hearing someone say the name Grand Admiral Thrawn in that Mandalorian episode. That was super duper satisfying, and to see that there was already a treatment of him that was good and incorporated the things about that character that I liked. See that series where he susses out who's in that ship, right? He can figure it out. He doesn't need anybody's help. He just looks at it and can tell. I think it's just really, it's like discovering there's a third dimension. You know what I mean? There's an extra one. You can go take a look at it. And this run has been really interesting because I think for me, it's really changed my perception of like what is legitimate or like what is quote Star Wars and what is Star Wars plus, right?
Right.
And there's a what is main Star Wars and what's a little extra, right? And for me, I think for a long time, I liked the books a lot, but it was just like the movies and then the rest. And then you really couldn't verify what was in and what was out and what mattered and what didn't. And now that we have, what they are doing with the ability to, to fund all these different types of Star Wars, all these different flavors of Star Wars is exactly the sort of thing you want when a monolithic, enormous multinational corporation purchases your favorite media. So, for me, I'm just excited that we're doing this. There's so much of this content that we're not worried about running out our runway because there's so much that's going to be coming out. And honestly, this cartoon has had, such a great breadth of character development, and they've been able to incorporate so many of the like side elements of Star Wars into one centralized location. Rebels itself feels like the crossroads of all these different properties, everything from the Mandalorian to, Darth Vader himself, right? They all sort of have this intersection with the Rebels crew. And so knowing that they're going to be bringing that crew into the Star Wars TV universe in the future makes me like very eager to find out what the heck happens to these guys in the finale of this series.
It's such a great thing to say, okay, you're watching a universe unfold, and even though separate creators working on certain stuff, they're not going to ignore. Well, you hope that they're not going to ignore it. Unlike some elements of 7, 8, 9 where they could have completely interjected some stuff in there, but they chose to ignore. I think that hopefully they've this monolith, what you're saying, learned the lesson where you can incorporate all this stuff and still keep the momentum of the story going. I mean, you got like the comic book stuff, like, BK Black Cranston and everything, him being pulled from the comics and stuff. It's certain comic book readers that know everything about him there, that were super jazzed to see him on screen, so I'm hearing like, well, BK's on screen now. It's the same way of what you guys felt, especially you, T. Mitch, when Ahsoka appeared on screen in the Mandalorian. You know, when the Mandalorian, when Bo-Katan, Bo-Katan, you know, when she appeared on screen and everything, you know, we're getting like the elements of it. It just opened up a world like, wow, it's a bigger world than just like, you know, Mando here, you know, and Din Djarin and stuff. You know, it's a bigger Mandalorian. Of course, you already knew that because you was been watching Clone Wars and Rebels. You know, I had no idea. I'm like, wow, you know, it's great to see this universe is more than just what I've seen with, like, you know, Luke Skywalker and, you know, his antics and stuff. That is so many toys out there to play with. You don't have to rely on a certain aspect of Star Wars in order for it to continue on.
Mm-hmm.
And what about you, Governor? What are your final thoughts and leading into this finale here?
Well, like we're all saying, I think this whole journey that we've been on, watching, you know, Clone Wars, Rebels is really, like I said in the beginning, it's really building up. We're seeing the foundation for the original Star Wars films. We're seeing how the rebellion's built and what the struggles they had to kind of put together this huge undertaking to take down this giant machine of the Empire. And they're doing it so well and so tastefully, and they're bringing all these little pieces in, these little aspects of for the fans. And some of the things fell into place, you know, with Rogue One and A New Hope. There's a lot of different call outs, but you wonder why, when they started talking about, you know, 7, 8, 9, why they didn't just continue the story like this. Why didn't they just continue the timeline and build on this and sort of pull some of the elements from maybe Rebels and maybe from Return of the Jedi and stick it into Episode 7? Why did they have to go, build this whole new universe? Excuse me. But yeah, I mean, I can't wait. I watched Episode 8. I didn't watch anymore. So I may just do that now because I want to really see how this ends. I'd like to see a great, like, Episode 15. I want to see it I want to be able to watch Episode 15, then watch Rogue One, and then A New Hope, all in one. I feel like that would really be the icing on the cake if that's how this transitioned.
Yeah. After you watch Episode 15, it'll really make you think about the sequel trilogy, and like you just discussed, I can tell you that for sure. You're at the end of Episode 15. It'll really make you understand the Filoniverse from The Mandalorian to where they're headed now and how it ties into the final sequel trilogy. So that'll be my cliffhanger for everybody as you watch this last run as we end Rebels next week. But once again, guys, we appreciate all you guys sticking along with us during this journey. Got some fun things planned for the channel ahead of you guys. We'll discuss after we finish up Rebels. But until next week and we finish out this season and series, this is the way.
This is the way.
Right.
This is the way. I did it like it.